We have been presenting you the 4 facets of wholeness so far. And now in this presentation, we are going to dive into the flavors of the sub-personalities. The sub-personalities are also placed on the nature-based map of the human wholeness, and they represent the immature, the wounded, the fragmented part of our psyche. They are manifested in strategies or patterns in which we behave and in which we are inhabiting our lives. They were a real help in our life, and they were formed, most of them in childhood, as protective strategies in order to keep us safe from emotional, psychological, social, even physical harm. And they did a great job in making us adapt and survive to the conditions, to the context that they were given. But now they are not serving us anymore. They even represent the main block towards our human development. In a way, we can say that they remained immature. They didn't grow up, and we are now adults, and we know better how to navigate through life and how to make decisions. So let's take, for example, a very young child that learns from a very early age how to keep the voice down, how to be small and quiet whenever he or she notices one of the parents being angry or in a bad mood. So this child is continuing its life into the adulthood, knowing how to be quiet and how to play small. But this, now that the child is grown up, is not serving anymore. Because in life we need to take risks, we need to use our voice, we need to act bigger, not small and in fear and being scared of the outcome. So this is a little bit how they were useful, and now they're not serving us anymore. We are living in a world in which there are people of all sorts of ages, from newborns until very, very old people. And yet, the age does not reflect the psychological maturity of a person. We might have a 40-year, 50-year-old person that is actually acting more or less like a child, because these persons are identifying themselves with these wounded and immature parts of themselves. That's why, unfortunately, the world is collapsing and we are dealing with so many crises at the same time, because we are living our lives from our woundedness and we don't have access to the resources that grants us mature and ready to serve life from wholeness. So coming back to the sub-personalities, I would like to tell you that their intention is good. Their intention is to protect us. They care about us. The strategies that they are using are not only painful at times, but also really not useful. And you will understand more as we are going on with this presentation, and we are going to map also the sub-personalities on the 4 directions of the map of human psyche.
So let's go now to explore the map of the human psyche in the sub-personalities realm, going south, in the direction of the south. There we have an archetype which is called the wounded children. Wounded children are our immature strategies, which are fueled, they are rooted in emotions. They find themselves being rooted in the emotions, especially the fear and the anger, and they develop strategies around them. Some voices of the wounded children could be, I am helpless, nobody loves me, I am left alone, everything in my life is going really, really bad, nothing is going right. Or one could say, this reality is too painful for me to reveal my true authentic self, so I better become one with all the rest. Or another voice could be, I am so angry for what was given to me, so I will be angry with everyone else or everything else. Could you track a little bit the intensity of the emotions that the wounded children have? That's why they are called wounded children. This part of our human psyche are wounded, meaning that they are hurt, very deeply hurt, and still they are children, meaning that they cannot find the maturity and the responsibility to respond to the adversities of life in a healthy way, in a mature way. So they come up with these strategies rooted in the emotions to help us survive, make it through life through these strategies. So perhaps you want to track, you go back in your life and ask yourself, in what relationships, in what circumstances do you find yourself deeply wounded, feeling really small, incapable, incomplete, in fear to rise, or perhaps feeling yourself in anger, in a sort of madness and an inner calling to go against everything and everyone. There, maybe, our wounded children use their strategies to keep us safe and at the same time keep us little.
The subpersonalities of North, Bill Plotkin named them loyal soldiers. And let me tell you what is the flavor of these loyal soldiers. Their mission is to keep us safe by making us act small, beneath our potential. Because in this way, we will not be a threat for the others. We will not find ourselves in risky situations. We will be non-threatening and we will not take risks. Therefore, we will be safe. So let's see some examples of the voices that we might hear from this perspective of the North subpersonalities. And these statements are pretty universal. We all more or less hear them at least sometimes in our lives. They might say something like, "Who do you think you are to do this in the world?" Or they might say, "You don't deserve this." Or they might say, "You're not good enough." Probably some of these statements, they are resonating in you. And now you have the awareness, knowing that these are the North subpersonalities. The way their strategy works is by self-criticism or by rendering others to be dependent on them, or by taming our inner wildness. And this kind of voices might sound something like, "Oh, I already know so much about this topic. I don't need to take this course, or I don't need to talk to this person. I'm way more knowledgeable than this one." And see, the flavor is different, but the aim is very similar. They are keeping us in our homes, secured, without any risks to go and explore the magnificent of the world out there. Much of our time in our lives, we are spending it listening to these voices, really believing that we are not good enough, that we are not deserving. And in this process of listening, there's a fight, there's an inner fight. And the potential, the magnificent part of ourselves is staying there, waiting to be discovered, and is wasted, is not used in a life-sustaining, purposeful way. So I'm just inviting you to reflect about this and to be aware of who is the voice that you should listen to.
Moving on to the east direction, there Bill Plotkin names the immature parts of our psyche addicts and escapists. And maybe already you have an idea of what they might be. Addicts and escapists. That means that they find their strategies through addiction and through escaping the hard reality. The addicts and escapists in us might say things like, "This relationship is too hard for you. This relationship with your mother, father, sister, brother, boyfriend, and so on is too hard. Better escape. Better lift yourself up." Maybe they say this responsibility that you are called to rise in front of is too challenging. Find your way out. Make your way out or lift yourself up find your way in making something more pleasurable, something more light, easy, comfortable. They offer to us different ways to evade the reality, to sidewalk the reality. They might offer us addictions, and we know addictions are about alcohol or drugs, but everything can be an addiction if we use it as a way to escape the hardships, the difficult or the responsible calls from life. So yes, addictions, but also any other different forms of avoiding. For example, tuning into fake spirituality. For example, having obsessions, or finding ourselves playing games or watching TV all day long instead of being a true adult. So pay attention to your actions and to your behaviors, especially in the hard moments. What strategies maybe your immature parts offer to you so that you can live in your small story, not in your big story, to keep yourself small instead of opening up to the world and showing up to the world. Maybe it is hard to track them, but the more we look inside, the more clues we will find.
And here we are, going on the west part of our map, describing this particular set of subpersonalities that are named the shadows or the shadow selves. And the way they are keeping us safe is by rendering unconscious, is by repressing a lot of our gifts, capacities, desires that might have been not accepted in our society, in our family, or they might have been seen as too much or too dangerous or too wild, or you name it. Shadow does not represent the things that we know about ourselves and we don't like it and we try to hide them from the others. No. Shadow represents everything that is true about ourselves, but we have no idea. That's why it's in the shadow. It is in the long black bag that we drag with us in our lives. And in this bag, there are gifts, there are capacities, there are valuable treasures to be discovered. So how can we explore shadow if it represents everything that we don't know about ourselves? Well, one way in which shadow is manifesting is through projecting. Projecting onto humans or animals some characteristics that we are not aware that we own and that we have. And these projections can have different flavors. They can be negative projections, and we call these sinister shadows, and they can be positive projections, and we can call these golden projections, golden shadows. And let me give you some examples of sinister projection. We might say something like, oh, this person is speaking so much. It's taking the whole space. It's so self-centered, so selfish, so much into itself. Or another example, this time of a golden shadow, might sound something like this. Wow, oh my goddess, oh my goodness, she or he is so inspirational. Look at the way they are speaking. They are speaking poetry. If only I could speak in that way. And they might seem very different because one is inspiring disgust and we want to stay away from them, and the other one is expressing awe and admiration. But underneath, we are projecting these qualities onto these persons because we are not yet seeing these qualities in ourselves. And even if we are speaking about sinister shadows, there are some qualities that this person, for example, that speaks so much in a group is accessing in order to embody this wildness and this way of free, authentic speech. It's a really dark, mysterious, and beautiful terrain to be discovered. So I'm inviting you to pay attention to your strong reactions, because when we are projecting qualities onto the others, it's a strong charge that we are visited by. It's a strong charge that is saying, ooh, there might be a possibility of a shadow to be investigated.
So we have explored all the subpersonalities, the wounded children, the loyal soldiers, the addicts, escapists, and the shadow selves. And you know what? All these subpersonalities don't work on their own independently. No, they like to collaborate, to create synergies, or one could say conspiracies. They are so dedicated in keeping us safe and protected that they join forces in order to keep us really safe. So it's not sometimes easy to identify only one of them, but if we really pay attention, maybe we understand how one follows the other or how they combine their own forces. It is said that the first who come to our rescue is the wounded children. If they don't manage to support us, to make sure that our basic needs are met, then loyal soldiers come in and they use their own strategies of blaming and criticizing. And yet, if the loyal soldiers are not able to keep us safe, then the escapists and addicts come in and they invite us to escape from the harshness of the reality. In this way, we maybe get our basic needs in another realm. And then again, if addicts and escapists do not make it through, then we repress everything into the shadow and the shadow selves, being unaware of what we could actually be.
Let us remind you that the subpersonalities are here with the aim of protecting us and keeping us safe. Our invitation is to be aware of who is speaking now, who is manifesting now through your body, through your actions and behavior. And celebrate the awareness, because this is the first step, identifying whose voice is this one.